Hello, everyone. Wherever you are and whenever you are, I hope you're safe and sound and keeping out of trouble. Welcome to the presentation. We'll be talking a little bit today about innovation and how you can use AWS to help your render problems. My name is Graham Petty, and I am the Chief Operating Officer of Cinesite here in Montreal. I've been in the business for a bit. I served as Operations Director at Rocket Science Visual Effects in Toronto, and prior to that was the Global Operations Director for Mr. X and the GM of Mr. X Montreal. So in my many travels, I've accumulated a few bits of wisdom, and I hope to impart them to you today. To give you a little sense of what Cinesite's all about, Cinesite was founded in 2013. It spun off from Kodak, which was its parent company. From there, it's really been on a bit of an expansion tear. In 2014, we opened Montreal. It was then and remains the largest studio in the Cinesite family. We do both visual effects here as well as animation. From there, we expanded even further west, bringing Image Engine into the family. They do visual effects. And in 2018, we brought Trickster in. So bit by bit, we've been growing our footprint. We now have a presence as far as Germany to Vancouver. And you can see from the next slide how we break down the services. Every site in the company can do visual effects, and currently both Vancouver and Montreal are doing feature animation. To give you a sense of the kinds of things we've been working on the visual effects front, it's actually quite a nice mix. We do work on some of the tentpole feature films, but primarily our specialty is independent features with slightly lower budgets and a lot of episodic work. We're getting lots and lots of business out of the streaming companies like Amazon and Netflix, and it's really no surprise. The streamers are becoming some of the best clients on the planet. It keeps everyone engaged. We get to make really cool feature films, really cool series. It's a little bit different every day, and keeps everyone engaged and smiling. This here is a slate of all of the animation projects that we've done in Montreal. So if you look at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, those are those movies, No Malone, Star, and Trouble. Those are sort of the inaugural projects, the ones that kicked the studio off. Since then, we've done quite a bit of work. Addams Family 2 came out, or rather, Addams Family came out last Halloween. It was immediately greenlit, and we're working on the sequel, Addams Family 2. This month on Netflix, you're going to see Fearless. If it's not out already, it will be in the next couple of weeks. We work currently on a project called Hit Pig, which is an adaptation of a popular graphic novel. And we're doing Blazing Samurai, which is a Mel Brooks film spun off from Blazing Saddles. We're also going to talk about Extinct, which is one of the projects we just wrapped this year. And Riverdance is just in post right now and finishing off. Look forward to that at the beginning of next year. So here on the screen, you can see quite a list of, it's a non-exhaustive list of the projects we've worked on as a group. Some of my favorite films are tucked away in that list, and I imagine some of yours are too. But, you know, what do they say? A picture's worth 1,000 words. Let's have a look at the reel, and we'll see what we've been up to.
Wednesday, don't move. An interdimensional doorway? This is sick!
Stand back.
Totally awesome.
A loser, just
like your loser boyfriend.
Rubbish.
If you call him a loser again, I'm gonna go full-blown gnome on you.
That was beautiful. Oh, come on, that was amazing. Now I just gotta get past that gate. Fire in the hole!
So I want to frame the discussion that we're going to have today by talking about it in the context of adaptability and innovation. There's a quote on the screen here: all failure is failure to adapt, and all success is successful adaptation. And I think as we move through time and things get increasingly busy and chaotic, information is moving quickly, technological changes are happening quickly, we need to keep pace, both as businesses and individuals. And what we're finding over time is that the companies that are able to keep pace, and in fact, the companies that are able to anticipate change, are the ones that are becoming the most successful. And certainly as individuals, we've seen a lot of change lately. You know, on Friday, we were in dailies, and on Monday, we were in our pajamas doing production meetings. It's just the way of the world, sudden change. We all had to make adaptation. But of course, we shouldn't be waiting for crises to have these discussions. We should always be looking for ways to make our lives better, make our processes better, and to adapt. You know, at Cinesite, we don't have a monopoly on common sense, but this is something we try to put into practice. We're always looking at how we do things to try and figure out if there's something better that we could do. I'll give you a few examples. So Unreal has been a long-time staple in the video game industry, but as the quality of that engine is increasing, we're seeing it in increasing levels, both in live action production as well as animation. So we're really excited. We have a whole department set up, testing, doing tools, and trying to implement Unreal as part of our production pipeline on both divisions. On the software side, we're quite innovative as well. We're using Gaffer. It's a little bit different than some of the other studios who typically rely on Houdini or Maya. For us, it's an open source solution. It's interesting to the artists because they get great images out of it, and it's great for the TDs because they get to fool around behind the scenes. We're also looking for cool ways to do our business. I mean, all of the companies in the Cinesite family are really great service companies. We create great images for our clients, but we don't create the projects themselves. And really, that's where Anaventure comes in. Anaventure creates amazing movies. They look for great IPOs, they option them, they develop them from scratch, and once they find them, they finance them and hand them over to us, and we deliver great products for them. Of course, all the creativity in the world makes no difference if you don't get an image on the screen. So getting it from the artist's head onto the screen is one of the places where Amazon comes in to help us out. So we use AWS a lot. It's really become an extension of our render farm, and we use it very often. The fact that we do both visual effects and animation means AWS has been deployed in both contexts. So I think the most constructive way for me to illustrate the benefits of AWS is to walk you through two case studies. The first we're going to take a look at is Jack Ryan, which is a visual effects project. After that, we'll take a look at Extinct, which is feature animation. So the first case we're going to talk about is Jack Ryan. So for those of you who don't know, Tom Clancy created a whole world of espionage and military intrigue back in the 1990s. Jack Ryan brings that whole world into the 21st century. Now, Jack Ryan is an analyst at the CIA, and circumstances push him out from beyond his desk, where he's forced to confront the enemy in the field. You know, if you've seen The Office, John Krasinski's the star, and you get to see him in a completely different light. You know, he goes from a pencil pusher to a real tough guy, and it's quite compelling. I think you can find both seasons 1 and 2 on Amazon Prime right now. Season 3 is in the works, but of course on hiatus as we work our way through this craziness. But I encourage you, if you like that genre, to check it out. It's quite compelling. To give you a sense of what the show's all about, we're going to have a look at the trailer.
What's the most major threat on the world stage? Venezuela is the single greatest resource of oil on the planet. So, why is this country in the midst of one of the greatest humanitarian crises in history?
Presidente Reyes nos ha traicionado a todos.
Your concern is that the Russians are secretly selling weapons to Venezuela?
It would fit a pattern.
It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound?
This ends up in the news. It's just going to cause panic.
In nuclear Venezuela, you will not hear about in the news because we'll already be dead.
Business or pleasure, Jack?
I'm here for work.
What happened?
Reyes! Look at me. Was his name ever mentioned?
You guys stay. You have no protection. Nobody's coming to save us.
We do this together. I can live with that.
So for us, you know, Jack Ryan didn't really stretch us that much. It was not an issue of we couldn't do the work because the scope of work was actually quite narrow. We had 116 shots to do over 7 episodes and about 2.5 months to do it. Really, what the problem was the scheduling. You know, we were swamped at the time. We had Rocket Man in, we had Lost in Space in animation upstairs, we had Addams Family. So it was really more of a question of resources and could we get this done? We did check around, and internally there was a lot of enthusiasm. I mean, it's a marquee project. It's got some cool work to do, a lot of explosions and whatnot. So finding the crew, the creative crew, the production crew was not an issue. What the issue was could we actually render these images out, given all the demands we were putting on the farm. So to give you a sense of what we're working with, we have a small but effective farm. It includes some profiles as follows. One of our IT guys has a fondness for cats, so there's some feline names in some of the blade configurations. But all told, we've got 136,000 hours of render per week. So that's what we have to work with. We divide it between visual effects and animation. Typically, animation gets the larger share because they have more work to do, you know, having all CG shots. But we can adjust that threshold if any department gets more busy over time. So when we have a render crisis, like we did with Jack Ryan, the first step is to examine, can we borrow from the other department? So we did that. FA was too busy. We had to look elsewhere. We do share a pipeline with London and Vancouver, so that's our next stop. Do they have anything available? It's great that we have that option, but let's face it, in ideal circumstances, both London and Vancouver are busy and the blades are not available. So in this case, they were busy and you know, we couldn't rely on them, so we had to look elsewhere. And that's really where AWS came into the mix. You know, and this is a great example of how we use AWS to manage our peaks. You know, it's not feasible for us financially to keep 100% of the possible render we're going to need available at all times. So the footprint we have is roughly 80 to 85% of our render needs, and the rest we supplement with AWS. I think over time, that number is going to adjust. We might actually go to 70 to 75% on-prem and increase the amount we push through AWS. And there's a few reasons for that, and I'll walk through them. You know, first, there's the price advantage, frankly. You only pay for the AWS when you use it, and when you don't need it, it goes away. And let's face it, if you've got a lot of work and you need AWS, hopefully there's some revenue associated to that work, and you can offset the cost quite easily. Also, there's a rapidity to the way you can implement this. Once you've got the configuration all done, if you need it, it's there. It can be instantaneously activated, instantaneously turned off. Even the best hardware providers aren't able to get you hardware in less than 6 to 8 weeks. So if you wake up in the morning and you've got a render problem in the next couple of weeks, it's probably too late if you're looking for a hardware solution. Now, having the option of going to AWS also allows us to keep a smaller farm, which saves us rack space, rental costs, energy, and the existing farm that we have is way more efficient. Fewer blades are running more often. This eliminates the idleness that we used to see on a Sunday, for example, where a job would wrap up on a Saturday morning and we'd have blades sitting without work for a day and a half. That kind of inefficiency adds up over time. Similarly, for the accountants amongst us, it really helps out. A lot of companies have a desire to not spend on CapEx. They'd rather have an operational expense, and certainly AWS falls into that bucket. There's also a technological aspect to this where you would, instead of investing in blades which may become obsolete in 2 or 3 years, you get the access to the latest blades virtually all the time. Amazon is always replenishing their blades, increasing their inventory, and if you need the most cutting edge, state-of-the-art blades, they're available. Certainly, I've never seen a client ask for less. They always want more K, 4K, 16K. They want virtual environments. So every year, the demands on our compute increase, and one way we're keeping pace is by using Amazon. So for us, this is a great example of how the flexibility AWS provides allowed us to capitalize and accept a job that otherwise would have been impossible. This achieved a number of things. For example, it made the client happy. We solved a problem for them and we gave them great work. So right off the bat, that's a success. Made the artists happy. It's a marquee project, really interesting work, and they were all engaged and excited to be part of it. And certainly for the studio, it was also good. Sometimes these 911 projects, they're not that uncommon, frankly, but when they land, if you can squeeze it in, it can turn a good month into a great month, and that's exactly what happened for us. Being able to take that job was a financial success. So let's shift gears a bit now and talk about Extinct. Extinct is a feature animation project. We just wrapped it up in February. It's a story of Op and Ed, 2 adorable creatures called Flummels, who are essentially donut-shaped animals who time travel from 1835 to modern-day Shanghai, only to discover that their species has become extinct. So now they're faced with the prospect of going back and setting things right and hopefully changing the world for the better. I guarantee this is the most exciting project you've never heard of. None of the marketing has started, and I really thank the executive producers for giving me permission to talk about it. The comedy pedigree for the show is fantastic. It's directed by Dan Silverman, who did the Simpsons movie. A lot of Simpsons alumni wrote this script, and you can see from the list of actors here that there's amazing voice talents bringing their charisma and energy to the show. So it's funny. It's really good. It's coming next year, so unfortunately I'm limited to what I can show you, but please keep your eyes for it. You won't be disappointed. So the circumstances surrounding Extinct were almost the opposite of what we had with Jack Ryan, and that's why it's an interesting case. We had a lot of foreknowledge that this was coming. We did our forecast. We had lots of time to plan. It was a marquee project. And of course, the render requirements were absurdly high compared to what we needed for Jack Ryan. It's a 1,400 shot show. It's 2K stereo, a lot of crowd and dynamic environments. All of the Flummels are furry. There's a lot of creatures in the movie that have feathers. So a lot of these files are quite large, and getting them done in a timely fashion in 2 channels was a challenge. So of course, as we move into lighting, the demands for render go up, and certainly as deadlines start to loom, the phone calls from production start, they want to see things faster. So first of all, we diverted from the VFX farm. That's our first step. We looked outside within the group, no additional capacity, so it's time to involve AWS. You may not know this, but there's 3 ways to engage AWS. The first is through spot instances. The pricing for spot instances varies with demand. So the more demand, the higher the price. However, you get a roughly 90% discount on some of the pricing, which is really attractive when you've got a lot of rendering to do. However, on-demand jobs get priority, so you have to consider that when you're deciding which way to go. The advantage to on-demand is you are guaranteed a fixed price per render blade per hour, and those blades are yours. You're not going to lose them. They're committed to you. The third way is by reserve instances. This is where you book a block of blades for a period of time, and that's something you negotiate directly with AWS on a case-by-case basis. So for Extinct, we connect to Canada Central 1. It's the same data center, in fact, where our equipment is housed. So we have a 10 gigabit connection between our equipment and Amazon's. So it's very, very quick and efficient. And due to the makeup of the shots that we were dealing with that I described a moment ago, we really wanted some beefy blades to chew through those. Also, we wanted to get powerful blades so we could use fewer of them to get the job done. This helped us reduce our licensing costs. So you can see on the screen here some of the profiles that we were attracted to. These are the kind of heavy-duty blades we wanted to chew through this show. Now, the budget for this show allowed us to do spot instances, and that's really what we based our forecast on. However, one of the disadvantages to being in Montreal is that there's a super high level of talent and demand for this kind of blade. I mean, we've got animation companies, visual effects companies, video game companies, high-tech companies, and they all want a piece of this action. They all want these really beefy blades. So what we found is that over time, as the urgency level increased on the show, we had to look for other alternatives. I mean, there were occasions where we would put a job on the evening, 700 blades, spot instances, and then over the course of the night, we'd lose blades in chunks of 50 or 75 as on-demand jobs attracted those blades from the AWS farm. So what we needed really was to increase the availability of those blades. There's a finite supply in Montreal, and the solution was really to plug ourselves into a much larger data center that AWS has in Virginia. So we did that by connecting from US Central 1 to US East 1 through a virtual gateway. And once we were plugged in, we had access to all the blades we ever needed. So once we were off and rolling, we got up to peak production. We were basically pumping out between 30 and 50 2K shots daily. On our busiest day of render, we did 61,500 hours in one 24-hour period, which is pretty outstanding. That's a record for us. And roughly 36% of the show, more than a third, was done in the cloud on AWS. That represents 650,000 hours of render. Certainly something that we couldn't achieve with the local footprint that we had. So I hope when you consider these two cases in context together, that you can see that AWS gives us the ability to adapt on the fly, to take a project at the last minute, to make a little bit of extra money, and also to take on those bigger projects that we would otherwise be excluded from. Hopefully this has been useful for you. Again, I hope you're all safe, and thank you for watching, and look forward to hearing about your render solutions next time we meet.